worldwide disrespect of Black and brown people. And so even though we did have processes of an elected mayor and city council, well, that got overruled a couple years ago. And some of our city assets got sold off and we got stuck with the bill, right? But we look across the world, Germany, they had their debt forgiven. Like, it's possible. We don't have to readjust in these ways that cause austerity or lack of rights, but we have to look at, again, who's control, who's process, and even when we do step into these processes, then, what is the unseen hand that is really about making the decisions that undercut those?
So I'm going to kind of start closing it down because we have a couple of announcements we want, and then we want to get people out. I would just want to give a shout out for accountability and really acknowledge the work that Amina is doing. She sat through all those meetings for the community benefits agreements under the faux community benefits ordinance. She documented the weaknesses of the shortcoming. She and others wrote a report that is arguing for change in that, and then they're going back to council for amendments. So we're saying here, it's not just sitting down and complaining, it's not just saying what we want it to be. It often takes, and it's a whole Detroit People's Platform and a whole equitable development coalition, so I know you're not working alone, you're working in concert, but it takes that kind of conscious, intentional action to say, this is where the ball's at, this is where I want it to be, this is how I'm going to move it. All right? And I hope you sort of get that kind of notion that we have aspirations and we do visioning for a purpose. The visioning kind of guides us where we want to be going, the imagining where we want to be there. But getting there is hard work, right? Because there's been centuries of obstacles built in, both in the way we think. So it's not all sort of intentional maliciousness, although there's a lot of intentional maliciousness out there as well that we need to fight. But often it's the way that we've been trained to even perceive what is possible. And that's why this notion of reimagining is so important. But once you reimagine it, you got to act on it, right? And I think there's sort of other things that came through, and it was really inspiring to me from each one of the panelists that these people have taken this in their life in different ways, right? Everybody's going to do it in different ways, but really has come at it with a conscious, intentional action about how they are going to do something different and how they're going to be contributing to a shared economy. So we're going to give them a round of applause. We're going to have an announcement.
Thank you, Dr. Hammer. Hey, y'all. Good evening. How y'all feeling?
Very good.
Feeling good. All right, so I'm with Solidarity, and we're downstairs with the convening with the Climate Justice Alliance, and it's a national convening of organizers who feel as though that there needs to be more protections in the environment, right? And so the convening takes place it's taking place tonight, and one thing that we have going on is an energy democracy concert, and we have some local artists coming out, and this is just an invitation for you all to come down. It's going to be some good food, some music. If you're vegan, we got vegan options downstairs, and so it's only $5. So anyone who's from Detroit in here? All right, so what do we say when I say it's only $5? Can y'all say only $5? Only $5. Yep. So for only $5, come downstairs, get some food, get some music, and we have wine and beer, right? And we suggest that there's a donation that you make, and so that's all. We'll get back to Dr. Hamilton.
And if you want to pay 10, go ahead.
And Solidarity is another example of these kind of new ways of ownership, new ways of controlling. So it's very consistent with the theme. Although I don't want you to miss your bus, so I'm not going to tell you what actions to take. But I don't know if Uber gets all the way up to Ann Arbor these days, or what the cost is. So, yes, Daryl.
I want to ask people to grab one of these off the table. Emory Douglas, who is the Minister of Culture for the Black Panther Party, is the person who's famous for creating that picture of that pig that we all understood what it stood for when we see it. You didn't have to read 6 pages of stuff to understand what the police were doing. He's going to be in Detroit the middle of April. He's coming here to support the Emory Douglas Youth and Family Arts Program that was created by Barbara Wayne Curtis. And so we invite you to take these and try to see if you can catch one of the activities that's going to be happening that week, especially the fundraiser that's going to be at Cinema Detroit. And so we invite you to come out for that, hang out with us, and bring your money and help support the Youth and Family Arts Program.
Wonderful. Thank you, Daryl. Mama Lila.
I just want to alert people to the opportunity to call Duggan about the water shut-off. They have escalated declared, potentially 70,000 people having their water shut off. So he made a statement at the State of the City that he was concerned about the success of children. So we're saying that if you want successful children, how can you be successful without water? So if you would call, it doesn't matter where you live, call at the mayor's office and ask for, and stop the water shut.
And if you go to Detroit People's Platform, you'll see that campaign being announced. I would imagine it's also at the People's Water Board. So check that out online, get the information so you can be effective advocates and make that call. Last announcement. Yes, sir.
Can I ask a quick question?
Absolutely.
All right. You got a microphone right fast.
They tell me in facilitation school not to do this, but I'll trust you.
Very good, very good. What up, Amina? I'm gonna ask my sister a question. Okay, so as far as accountability, that's something I've been wrestling with. How do we do it? Maybe we could push for people to advocate for things because one individual can't push for legislation, right? But that's what we need. We need policy change. But that could be something that they will say like, oh, it's more than them to me. But nobody is stopping people from advocating for things. So what are some of the things that we should advocate for? Because like if Barack Obama would have did what he was supposed to do, he could have given us the political education that it wouldn't have led us to this alternate reality. So he could have, advocated and used this platform. So what do you think about that?
I think advocacy is essential to anything that you're doing that revolves around change. So we may draft policy, but it's not going to go anywhere unless there's advocacy to support it. You have to have people show up to say this is what we want, because one organization or one group can always put forth some legislation without the community behind them to say this is what we want, this represents our needs, we live here, we are the voters, we are the people paying your paychecks. Do this, then it doesn't go anywhere. So you always need advocacy. It's an essential piece to any policy work is going to be organizing and advocacy and disruption of the way things are normally going. So when you are an advocate and when you are a part of an organized community, then you can disrupt. You can, when you sit in those meetings and someone is not giving the mic to the community and they're talking and it's an hour-long meeting and you're at minute 45, an organized group will have decided beforehand how much time they're going to give the facilitator to speak before the community is actually going to walk out. Or walk up and take the mic. I'm an advocate of walking up and taking microphones in public meetings. That type of stuff, though, has to be organized. And an organized community actually, they can win. I have a list of community benefits that have come through advocacy and organizing without ordinances. Detroit right now has the only ordinance in the country. So you don't actually need the legislation when you have the advocacy and the organizing. It helps, but you can't get the legislation without the advocacy and organizing. So it's like a chicken and egg situation. And there are communities all over the country that have gotten schools, parks, money to save their small businesses, home repair grants, foreclosure assistance, all kinds of benefits that the community needs, and they've gotten it through being an organized community and advocating for themselves. So, does that kind of answer?
Right, but somebody from the outside looking in, like, how could they advocate, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, where does,
I think you start with organizing yourself and the people around you. I don't think you need a formal